So officially, good morning, everyone. We are to start our TREIO Info Day today. My name is Alexandra Tsvetkova, and together with Georgina Humphreys, we are going to speak about the background of the TREIO project, what TREIO project has produced in terms of materials and different tools that you can use for judicial cooperation purposes, and more particularly with regards to the EIO exchanges that are covered by the project. But we also give you a little bit of a background of the different system and digitalization developments that underline all these tools and materials. So what is the program for today? We'll first go through the digitalization initiatives of the Commission, just to make you aware of the different systems that are in place. Then Georgina will go through the e-learning course that we have prepared for you, not only on the legal and business side of the EIO exchanges, but also on how to use the system that have been developed. In this regard, I will briefly show you afterwards how we have simulated a real-time environment to support you in the training process, providing you with some self-paced exercises that you can perform on top of an actual system. And then we will have some time for your questions. We already have some coming up from the registration forms, but nevertheless, you're free to comment at any time during the meeting today as well. We will let you know how to sign up for these tools or how to pass this information to your colleagues as well. So let's quickly go through all these aspects. Now, with regards to the digitalization initiatives, what are we talking about here? In the last years, the European Commission have promoted a number of initiatives to support the digitalization process in the cross-border transaction and exchanges of evidences. And they have tried to cover the most used judicial cooperation instruments in all those initiatives, but going step by step. It all started in 2010 with a member states originated initiative that led to the development of the so-called eCodex system. This is a communication system for exchange of data between judicial authorities, and it is designed explicitly for the purposes of the judiciary. In 2016, the original eCodex project ended. It proved to be so successful for its purpose and concept that the Commission decided to support the project further, and there were a number of spin-off projects coming out of it and focused on different judicial cooperation use cases. After several years of negotiations between the Commission and the member states, there was a regulation adopted in 2022 that defined the different roles, responsibilities, and the overall legal framework for operating the eCodex system. And in reality, it is now the European communication system for exchange of data and documents, and it will become gradually used in all the judicial cooperation instruments in the next 10 years. Alongside these legislative developments, the Commission also realized that having eCodex as a secure communication channel, they could actually build further and support the member states further in the digitalization process. So they decided to develop an e-evidence digital exchange system that is now also known as the reference implementation software. The idea here is to provide all the member states with one and the same platform that could be used for exchange of messages, information and evidences for the purposes of the different judicial cooperation instruments. And they decided to pilot this idea exactly with regards to the digital exchange of European investigation orders, mutual legal assistance forms, and interception of telecommunication notifications, considering the upcoming application of the EIO directive at the time. Unfortunately, due to COVID-19, the launch of this e-evidence digital exchange system was delayed several times, and it was finally launched in 2022, which is quite a bit late from the original deadlines. However, we have now 11 member states that have already joined this digital exchange of EIOs in a piloting mode, and you can see which are the member states on the screen. Working with eEDES in a piloting form means that there are at least a couple of competent authorities coming from that state that have launched the eEDES system and are using it for digital exchange purposes. However, in none of these states the system is yet nationwide, but it is going in that direction. We have also around 5-6 member states that are also very advanced in piloting and launching the system in the next month. Unfortunately, other member states are a bit delayed in the process, but nevertheless, they are planning to launch in the next 12 to 18 months, also due to other reasons that I will briefly touch upon now. This was about the technical side. So what type of systems we have on EU level at the moment. In order to further support the digitalization process, in December 2021, the European Commission also adopted a legislative proposal package that aimed to further enhance the digitalization of judicial cooperation domain. And 2 years later, just like over a month ago, in December 2023, this legislative package was officially adopted. And we have now in force, among other legislative documents, a special regulation dedicated on the digitalization of judicial cooperation and access to e-justice in cross-border civil, commercial, and criminal matters. This very same regulation also amended 8 other legislative acts in the judicial cooperation field. And what's most important, that it brings new rules allowing for video conferencing and other distance communication technologies used in oral hearings. It deals with the electronic communication between natural legal persons and their representatives and the competent authorities. There are specific rules for the recognition of documents with electronic signature or seals, and it covers also the payment of fees through electronic means. All these aspects have been scarcely regulated over time, but now are covered by this brand new regulation. What's most important, though, is that this regulation also makes the use of the secure communication channel ensured by the Codex system to become mandatory for a total of 24 legislative instruments in the field of judicial cross-border cooperation. And in order to ease the member states, the Commission is making available this reference implementation software that I've mentioned just now, to be used by member states as an alternative to the development of a specific dedicated national solution. This means that the member states could either opt to use for the reference implementation, which is the easiest way to do, to go with, but they could also develop their own system to be interconnected with the e-Codex communication channels if they wish to do so. Considering this large number of legislative instruments that are to be gradually digitalized, the Commission came up with a special roadmap. And you can see it on the screen, which will show you the stages of implementation. The use of eCodex and the potential use of the eEDES system will become mandatory from 2022, starting with the service of documents and taking of evidence in civil and commercial domains. And then step by step, until 2031, they will gradually move towards the digitalization of all the other judicial cooperation instruments covered by this regulation. And you can see that the sending and receiving EIOs via electronic means will become mandatory as of 2028. And by then, all the member states should either decide whether to use the reference implementation software, the eEDES system, or develop their own solutions. As I said, most of them have already opted for the use of the eEDES system. Now, there is a technical slide coming just now, and the purpose is not to overburden you, but just to briefly show the main idea here. So, for example, this is your competent authority in Spain. It's opted for the use of the reference implementation software for the purposes of EIO, MLAs, and ITNs exchanges. This reference implementation software is linked to eCodex connection point. You don't care about this connection. It exists, it's secure, it's designed specifically for the purpose of the judiciary by the judiciary. This very same eCodex connection point is linked to another eCodex connection point in a different member state. That again uses the reference implementation. And on the other side, there is a competent authority, let's say in Portugal or Austria or Bulgaria, that use this very same reference implementation software. And this is how this software looks like. It's very intuitive. It's rather simple. It will look one and the same for all the judicial cooperation instruments in terms of main features. Of course, the instruments are different. The forms will be different, but the main outlook and the main features will be more or less one and the same. So one is not confused if using it for different purposes. One important feature that could support expediting the exchange of the different forms and documents is the automated translation provided therein. It does not substitute the official translation required by the different legislative tools, but especially in case of emergency and for operational purposes, it helps quite a lot to easily understand what's written in the forms in the fastest way possible. So this is the overall picture of what's going on EU level. So I will now try to briefly explain to you where the TREIO project stands in all of this. The project itself, looking at the development back in 2019, 2020, decided to develop an all-around cross-border training on the EIO implementation, not only looking from legal and business perspective of these exchanges, but also trying to give the member states some useful tools on how to train their professionals on using these new systems that were in development at the time. The idea here was also to align a bit the different implementation settings of the EIO directive, considering there are still differences between the member states that exist in that sense. So first, we designed some training materials for person-to-person type of training that was tailored to the different cross-border specifics, again, from legal and business perspective. but these materials also allow for different national adaptations. As we know, between the member states, there are different workflows. Sometimes there are different there is different case law that needs to be considered, and so on. All these materials have been translated in 16 different languages, besides the original in English. And we have provided for a number of train-the-trainer activities and different online trainings of professionals across the member states. Originally, we focused on the piloting member states, but then gradually extended our services to all the member states who have required us to do so. We have been working with the competent authorities responsible for the eEDES launch on a national level. Thus, some of these trainings may have reached you and you may have taken part in them, but they have not been launched nationwide for the particular state. This is why, based on our knowledge on these materials, on the experience that we have gained through the project, we have also developed a self-paced e-learning course that will be briefly presented just after me by Georgina. And then we decided to develop the so-called TREIO eEDES simulator. This simulator provides for an exact replica of the system provided by the Commission, but we also upgraded it with specific tools that could help a professional going through a self-paced training to simulate a real-time exchanges of EIOs. And now we are at the very final stage of the project, where we combine all these tools and produce specific guidelines for the member states on how, or for separate professionals, on how to use these tools for their own purposes. Now I will pass the word to Georgina to present you the e-learning course, and then we'll see how the simulator and all the other activities link to it.
Thank you, Alex. So I'll cover some of the bits about the e-learning, the online training from TREIO. We have several aspects of the training. We have an e-learning platform that has been set up. We have self-paced training, which is the content and things that go with it. And we have select language versions. And with that, we have the TREIO eEDES simulator, which Alex has briefly mentioned, and all that together provides an online training tool and package for professionals. We have different use cases for the TREIO training package. We have a full package and an eEDES package. These are two separate training packages. There are some crossovers between the two, but the EIO eEDES training is the full package, so it's everything that you could think of related to the EIO directive, EIO forms, and the eEDES system in terms of training, which you may require. We have the short version, which is the eEDES training, which focuses specifically on the eEDES platform and how to use it for sending and receiving EIO forms. Both of the packages utilize the TREIO eEDES simulator, so provide a safe environment to practice different aspects of the EIO workflow. And then we also using the full package as a kind of refresher training, so where professionals can maybe be instructed or select various aspects which they feel that they need to learn more about or practice more as a refresher rather than a full training. There are various benefits of the TREIO online training we see, an increased awareness of the EIO directive and the EIO form and eEDES, including not only the benefits but also transferring to the different digital evidences. It's quite user-centered, as an active learning platform for professionals. So as there is no instructor for the self-paced course, it is entirely up to the professional to focus on their learning, but it also allows professionals to select opportune times to do so. So we understand that professionals don't have a lot of time. There is a lot of work to be done. So having 1 week out for training might not be possible, but having a week's course or a 2-3 day course online and selecting appropriate times to study those aspects is great for flexibility and accessibility, and allows for you to apply and contextualize that in the future use of eEDES and sending and receiving EIO forms, for example. We had several aims and objectives of the learning package, and having a structured knowledge of the EIO directive and EIO procedures is obviously super important. Being able to identify investigative measures and overcome typical difficulties in the application of the EIO, as well as identifying the procedures for transmission and receipt of the EIO and other aspects in the EIO workflow, and specifically also learning to use eEDES, but in a safe environment that allows for you to test and practice. And at the end of all of that, hopefully a well-rounded knowledge of all things EIO and eEDES. Could you move to the next slide, please, Alex? Thank you. So the e-learning content, as I've mentioned, is self-paced. It's online. The full package has a duration of roughly 1 week, and the short version, so the eEDES package, roughly 2 to 3 days, but it depends on the professional and previous experience also. The master copy is in English, and then there's select translations, and the training targets multiple stakeholders, so not just prosecutors, but administrators, etc. The training overview here shows there are 5 modules. Each of the training course packages has 5 modules, just some are shorter in the eEDES version than the full package. As you can see, there are tasks as well. We have several activities within the training, and they're embedded within modules or towards the end. We have various points where knowledge tests are included, and also the use of the TREIO eEDES simulator throughout. So every exercise should be actioned within the TREIO eEDES simulator to enact what you would do in the real world. There are a variety of content in the e-learning. We have a collection of theory and practice together. So as I said, there are multiple exercises, but there is also multiple elements of reading, some visual aids, case law in there. We also have some video tutorials, so demonstrations within eEDES, for example, where you watch the demo, but then we expect you to follow along with the exercise following that demo. And also you can use the TREIO eEDES simulator to actually enact what we're doing within the video demos too. And we have some embedded simulations within the course content too, which are followed on by either quizzes or exercises. And then we have the examination at the end for self-assessment, as well as those quizzes which I previously mentioned. Alex will just briefly flick through these, but as you can see, we have text-based content, we have some graphics, some animations in there as well, where you click on certain elements. We have videos, which have subtitles, we have quizzes, which are sporadically throughout. We have these demonstrations, which look like a video. They have subtitles, but they also have different sections. So throughout each of the videos, we've kind of put it into chunks, where you then have additional information also within the video to instruct you on certain important parts, where you can read more about maybe form translations or other things within the system. Alex, if you could skip. Thank you. Each of the videos for the demonstrations do not have sound, There are shorter videos which do have some sound, but most videos include subtitles for the fact that you might be in a workplace environment and potentially do not need sound coming out of the speakers. So we have tried to include as much information within the subtitles and guide you as much as possible. Here is a quick demonstration, but I don't think we will present it all. But as you can see here, the demonstration has started. We can see that we have some subtitles. In this version, it's English, but the language versions have the specific language. And we walk through some of the aspects of, in this case, an EIO request. We have subtitles explaining certain aspects. In some cases, they are chunkier, in some cases, they are smaller. And in each section, we have, as I mentioned, some additional information, usually appearing as a document or a plus on the right-hand side. And then when you click on it, it provides more information about specific content, which we think is super important at that point in the video. So in this case, it's about selecting the correct competent authority. Alex, you could move to the next slide, please. And as I said, we have embedded simulations as well. So not only do you have the TREIO eEDES simulator to use, we have included 2 simulations in the content itself where you actually get to physically click on elements and walk through the process yourself. Alex, you can skip that one, I think, and that one. So you can see here we have started the simulation and we have basically replicated what you would do within eEDES or the TREIO eEDES simulator. And we'll see there that we put some information in because in this simulation you can't type, but you can click on elements. So we've tried to include some guidance or information that you might include within the form filling elements of the EIO. In this case, it's an ITM, but it could be the same with an EIO. We have a set number of practicals. There is a minimum number in there, but there are around 10 practicals embedded within the course itself. And as I said previously, all use the TREIO eEDES simulator to perform the tasks. We have some tasks in there which are instruction based. So we've given you a set of practicals where it says, please do A, B, C, D, E. And we've guided you through the tasks. And then usually we follow up with another scenario, the same exercise, but we don't give you the instructions. So we expect you to go to the TREIO eEDES simulator and replicate what you just did in the first exercise in the second exercise without instruction guidance. And to do that, you log into the eEDES simulator, which Alex will come to in a minute. And you basically follow through the scenario, the tasks, and maybe the set instructions that are there. The TREIO eLearning is designed for all stakeholders. So we've thought about different end users who might be using eEDES and also have the need to have an awareness about EIO. And as you can see here, there is access to either both training packages or one or the other if there's a choice and you're maybe already aware of the EIO in great detail, but maybe not so much about eEDES, then you might choose the shorter package. If you're new to EIO completely, then you might choose the longer package. There is more material for trainers. While this course is self-paced and technically doesn't need a trainer, if a trainer was to be implemented in a member state or competent authority for the e-learning, then there are files such as storyboards and quizzes and examinations in other formats too. And moreover, for the competent authorities, there's developer files as well, which could include all of the images, graphics, text, etc., as well as a developer manual for information on how things have been organised and structured, and the actual files for the e-learning as well to be embedded into a learning management system, for example. And now I will pass back over to Alex, who will talk about the TREIO eEDES simulator and the EIO business workflow.
Thank you, Georgina. So, as I already mentioned, we have tried to ease your life when going through the e-learning course, or when you're trying to exercise yourself and familiarize yourself with the eEDES system on your own. So, in a typical training or in a typical situation, you will have one professional on one side of this whole network using the eEDES system. And you would be interested to communicate, to exchange EIOs with a professional on the other side using the same eEDES system. However, in a self-paced environment or when you are exercising on your own, this is not always possible to have a buddy to help you. So what we have tried to do is to replace your partner with the so-called TREIO autoresponder. So the TREIO simulator consists of the actual of replica of the actual system, eEDES, plus the TREIO autoresponder that reacts to what you have done. So, for example, if you issue an EIO following the exercises and the instructions we give you, the autoresponder will send feedback, either acknowledging the EIO or refusing to acknowledge it or asking for additional information. Same goes if you're interested in exercising what happens when you receive an EIO. You ask the autoresponder to send you an EIO, and depending on the different scenarios that we have implemented, it reacts to your requests. So the overall setup, this is again a bit technical, but I will just try to briefly show you what we have done. So we have connected our simulator to the actual communication channels provided by eCodex. So these are real life exchanges that happens between our simulator and the eCodex environment. However, instead of this messaging going to an actual competent authority somewhere in Bulgaria or Austria, for example, these messages goes to our TREIO autoresponder, and these messages are linked to the instructions and exercises given in the e-learning platform. Now, you can either do the e-learning course together with using the simulator, or you can use the simulator as a standalone tool to just going through the exercises that we have provided you with. But as I said, this is as close to real-time exchange as possible. And we have tried to not only give you the idea of the exchange, but also to simulate it in the best way possible. The scenarios that Georgina mentioned are actually 10 different use case training scenarios. 7 of them cover different interactions from the position of the sender of an EIO, and 3 cover the receiving aspects. All these scenarios have the so-called if-then behavior. So in the scenario, you have a number of steps that you need to undertake, and depending on the steps that goes through, for example, filling in Annex A or Section C, then you receive through the autoresponder specific feedback coming from the system. And here in these scenarios, you can see what type of exercises we have. For example, number 5 is checking whether Annex B has been received. This is an explicit exercise that triggers explicit feedback from the autoresponder. How does this work in reality? So if you have an exercise where you exercise outgoing EIO, so you are the sender of the EIO, you log in with into the simulator, and then you assume the role of the issuing state. The role of the executing state is played by the TREIO autoresponder. When you exchange EIOs, you don't send them to a particular competent authority in a concrete member state like Sweden or the Netherlands. You send them to the TREIO autoresponder as it is showed on the screen. This is explicitly included in the exercises and the instructions therein, so this is not something that you need to remember just now. But I'm just trying to show you how this interaction works. In a use case where you want to exercise on the receiving side, you trigger an incoming EIO, and then you start interacting with the system, playing the role of the executing state. And then the TREIO autoresponder simulates the issuing state with the number of scenarios showed here. So how this happens in reality? Each of you already signed up for this webinar will receive access details to both the e-learning environment and the TREIO eEDES simulator. So you will receive username and password. You go to the link that we provide you, you put your username and password, and then you sign into the simulator. Of course. Okay, so when you sign in, this is how the actual eEDES system looks like. You see your username here, and then you can check your profile and the different roles you have assumed via this account. Now here you have full rights because you are training yourself. So you have the full rights to do everything that is possible to be done in the system. And all these roles are explained in quite big details in the e-learning environment. Then you have all the features that the system provides for the purposes of EIO exchanges. So you can start a new request, choosing whether this type of request is an EIO investigation order request, an MLA request, or an ITN request. You select it, you put the subject of your request, let's say testing attachment size, and requesting financial information. And when you click on continue, you actually start working on an EIO. In the very first page, you see an overview of your EIO. You are acting as the issuing state, and you can see that you're using the eEDES simulator. And then when you proceed with choosing the executing state, you'll find here the name of the TREIO autoresponder. There are a lot of basic information that is provided in the overview. Every one of your colleagues that is working with you on the same EIO case will be listed here in Assign Users. Then you'll be able to see all documents attached to this EIO in the second part. And then you move to the actual filling of Annex A. I'm not going to go through all the sections. Each of them concerns different peculiarities, but at any point you can perform a validation check to see whether you have done it right or not. And when you move along through the different steps, you see all these steps happening in the event and message timeline. Each step along the way goes with different actions that you can perform. So obviously, you cannot perform any further action before completing Annex A. But once the Annex A is completed, a different number of steps appear here. As I said, One of the valuable aspects here is the automated translation. Again, it is not a substitution for official translation, but still you can use it for operational purposes and gives you quite a quick feedback on what you can do. You can also auto-translate already attached and completed EIOs, so this could help on the receiving side. Going back to the dashboard, you see all the issued requests that you did. This is a brand new account, by the way. This is why we don't have any issued requests. You can see all the received requests coming from other participants in the trainings. And in particular, these are exercises that took place in a training for Slovakia. So you can see all the EIOs they have issued and the eEDES simulator have received. Here you can also see the draft, the one that we just started. And it goes with different start to school notifications that could guide you easily through a big number of documents. If you go again to the dashboard and you just click on one of these catalogs of issued, received, or draft requests, you can perform a specific search or a more extended search via the different filters that could guide you further through this big number of requests you see. When you go to receive request, again, you see not only the basic information regarding this EIO, the field in Annex A, but also all the various annexes there are. And as I promised you, once you have moved forward with the different steps, the actions that you can perform become different, depending on where you stand at that moment. This is not an EIO training. So the purpose here is just to give you a brief overview of how this system look and feel. As I said, it's pretty straightforward, it's quite user-friendly, and it's not difficult to learn how to use it. For each new judicial cooperation instrument that follows that roadmap I showed you, you have different options. And when you try to start a new request, all these judicial cooperation instruments will appear here. And when you move to a different judicial cooperation instrument, different forms and different content will follow depending on the requirements of the respective legislative acts. If we choose now an MLA, for example, giving it a random name, then you will see how different the forms look like following the general forms of an MLA. So going back to my slides, this is like the basic overview of the simulator there is. It really is this system that you are going to use, but you can trigger all these exercises to make your life easier during training purposes. So, as already told you, all of you will receive complimentary access to these tools after the day is over. However, you can also find more information on our website in the toolkit section, where in the next 10 days, we'll gradually upload all the language versions of the training materials. We'll provide you with the overall training methodology and different additional documents that are linked to the eLearning and the TREIO eEDES simulator. If one of your colleagues is interested to sign up for these tools, they can also go to the link that is showed on the screen. They could sign up for our online training, and with just one form, they will receive access to all the different tools. The e-learning environment, the TREIO eEDES simulator, and the autoresponder. Usually, it's quite a fast process, but it may take up to 3 days, especially if you have asked for the access over the weekend. Just check your spam box whether you have received our notification on the access details. And if you still cannot find it, you can always contact us at TREIO, office@treio.eu for further information and guidelines. One important note, in the very first moment, and this will also happen to you when you receive the complimentary access, you will have one and the same account, one and the same username, one and the same password for all the different tools. When you go on the e-learning course, you'll be required to change your original password and only use the new one. But for the other tools, the eEDES simulator and the autoresponder, the original password will remain as it was sent to you, and you can use it as long as you need it. All these tools are to be provided as a minimum until the end of the year, and we are currently finalizing the negotiation process to extend the license of using the eEDES environment for training purposes after the end of 2024. So to give you more options to work with these tools. And now it's time for your questions. It's up to you to ask and receive feedback. We are aware that this is quite a lot of information that we shared with you, not only with regards to the tools themselves, but also considering the background that we gave you. So we are here for you and for your questions. Thank you.
Alex, there are currently no questions in the chat. However, if people do have questions, you can either speak if you're happy to be on the recording, or otherwise if you post them in the chat, and then Alex or I will kind of announce them to the rest of the group for you.
Okay. We can also, in the meantime, cover some of the questions that were already listed in the registration forms. So no matter what is one of the participants asked whether they could use these tools independently from the stage of development and the stage of implementation of eEDES on national level. And as already mentioned, it is possible. All the tools and the access that we provide to these tools is completely independent from whatever the development in your member states is. I'm quite aware that Spain is very advanced in using eEDES in terms of the piloting process, but I'm also aware that not all competent authorities are already using it. So if you are one of those groups of professionals that are not yet familiar with the eEDES system, you can use the complimentary access that we give you, and you can pass along this presentation and these materials to your colleagues to sign up for the same access that we gave you, that we are to give you. As I've mentioned, all these materials coming out of the project will be available for free for quite some time after the end of the project. But we are available to you in case of any questions and concerns that you may have with using the tools. One question from the participants came with regards to how a competent authority may request a specific training from the TREIO project to for its professionals. So the TREIO project is at its end. We are no longer in a position to provide person-to-person trainings, but nevertheless, we can provide all these materials for free to your competent authorities. We can guide you through the process of organizing these trainings internally, and we can provide access to the online training, to the e-learning course, and to the TREIO eEDES simulator for as many professionals as possible. This could be done via a joint request by the competent authority or by the form that I just showed you on the screen, where each professional could individually request their access. So what else might be interesting coming from the registration forms? There is one participant stating that he uses EIO quite regularly in his day-to-day work, and he will be interested to share this information with his colleague as much as possible. So as I told you, you receive yourself the complimentary access. You receive materials from, the presentation from this webinar. And you can pass along this information to your colleagues. It's also important to give them the option to explain them the option of using all these tools. Considering we have the full e-learning course, we have the shorter version for more experienced practitioners, or the independent use of the eEDES simulator if for some reason the professionals are not interested in a full e-learning course, or even in the shorter version. When we distribute your access to these tools, we will also send you the exercises completely independently from the e-learning course. So you may find them in the e-learning course with all the explanations there are, but you can also use them completely independently to exercise on your own if you feel comfortable with trying the system yourself. We've already explained the different modalities of implementation depending on the level of knowledge and experience. So I think we covered most of the questions coming in from the registration forms. I would like to just to briefly focus you on the demonstrations and the simulations that Georgina presented as part of the e-learning course. These are the materials that will guide you mostly through the different steps on working with the eEDES system. So you will have the full manual of using the system. You will have the shorter version with regards to the eEDES simulator and how to use the different exercises. But if you really want to go through a step-by-step approach on how to fill an EIO and what are the different peculiarities that could exist there, I would suggest you to go through the demonstrations and the simulations that are in the e-learning course, as they will really go through all the steps that I just showed you, explaining about the eEDES simulator, but in much, much greater details. And they will guide you to what is the correct next steps in that process. So I think that is from my side, and we'll be glad to take any additional questions from you if there is anything unclear or something that still remains a question after our explanation. Anyone? Don't be shy. We are here to help. Okay. Maybe, Georgina, if you have any additional wisdom to give.
I don't have any additional wisdom, I think. But I think one thing to note is that the TREIO eEDES simulator is different from the eEDES system, so it's not specifically meant to be for practicing with real data. This is the reason why we have given you several exercises with different scenarios, and with those scenarios comes specific data to input and request back from the system. So when using the TREIO eEDES simulator, please do not include any real data, no personal data. It should be mock data. So of course you can come up with your own extra examples if you want to practice further some of the exercises, albeit in some cases we've given you 2 to practice. Then that's also possible to do so. And as Alex said, if you follow through the training, we have tried to include it in the EIO workflow. So providing you additional information, but also giving you the chance to actually practice specific tasks as you're going through, so that it all ties together and it's applied in the best way to contextualize the workflow. So I think that's the only wisdom I have there, Alex.
Thank you, Georgina. So again, we'll welcome any questions or comments you may have. In reality, some of the comments in the registration forms concerned more of the legal aspects of EIO exchanges, but considering this is not a training on EIO, but just a webinar presenting the different tools that you may explore to learn more about the EIO exchanges, I would invite all those that are interested in these legal aspects to actually go to the eLearning course and get through it. Maybe something that looked a bit scary when Georgina presented it, the course itself doesn't take a full week, so don't worry about that. But we reference it as a weekly 1 week training, because in reality it takes just a couple of days, but it's much smoother, and it might be able to help you more if you go through all the exercises within a week, just not to forget certain aspects or to miss certain aspects when you go through such a training over longer periods of time. So don't worry about this. Is not a whole week training. It takes you just a couple of hours per day. Okay, I still don't see any comments in the chat. So if there are any, there aren't any at this moment of time, we can close the session for today, but we remain at your disposal at any time when you start using tools. And we are open for questions. Just send us an email to office@treio.eu, and we'll do our best to respond as quickly as possible. As already mentioned, the recordings from today, the presentations will be shared with you by the end of this week. And you also receive access to these tools after the end of the webinar. So thank you very much for being here today. And I hope you enjoy using these tools. Thank you.